Good evening and welcome to Power Books Live. I can't figure out the computer is doing something crazy. Okay, here we go. There we go. Welcome to Power Books Live. And this evening, my first guest is Kadesha Powell Sadiq. Yes?
Yes. Yes.
And she is the author of Growing Up Joplin, which is, as usual, available on powerbooks.com. You can go on there right now while we're talking about it and you can buy your copy. It's an awesome book, and I really enjoyed reading it, and I think you will too. Welcome, Kadesha.
Thank you.
Yes. Will usually I do like the sort of dry, boring, read your bio thing, but would you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a little bit about you?
Okay, yes. First, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. As you said, my name is Kadesha Powell, and my debut memoir, Growing Up Joplin, highlights my experiences of an African American, one of the few African Americans growing up in a predominantly white town. So I think that sometimes when we hear the struggle, I think it's a different perspective when you're an only, and some of the microaggressions and some of the struggles. So I just kind of highlighted the struggles and the triumphs together because it wasn't all bad, but there are some things that were definitely impacting on my life and shape, and I didn't realize it until I left the town in 2005 and moved to the East Coast. And so being open to diversity, loving myself, accepting myself, chopping off my hair, going natural with my two puffs, it all was like a journey. It was a journey to like love and acceptance. So there was a lot of kind of healing in my story. And that's why I felt that, I could connect with other women and readers. And I've gotten a great positive response from it, being inspirational.
Yeah, and I can totally see that.
Mhm.
You highlight a lot of issues that, for women of color, for people of color in general. And, there's a lot to relate to. There's a whole lot to relate to. And I think it's interesting that in 2021, we're still having these
Yes.
conversations, right?
Mhm.
These same, because I was going through the book again a little bit before we got on together, and I was looking at the whole thing where the teacher
Yep.
says to you that colored
Yep.
kids don't read as well and that you're never going to be a good reader. And I'm just like, what year was that? Like,
Yeah,
what year?
that had to be like mid 80s. Yeah.
Wow.
So I was in fourth grade. So I want to say like mid 80s. And
Yeah.
I remember clearly, she said, colored kids don't learn as well as white children. And I was in a remedial class for help. So she wasn't helping
So her business was to help you.
to help me. Yes.
She was busy telling you it wasn't going to work. Huh?
Right. And that was my
Boy,
first time of being aware of skin color in the fourth grade with that moment. And it was so etched so far because I could have made two choices. I could have never read anything ever again. Or what I did was like, I can be a reader. Like something inside of me was like, you can do this. And I did.
you kept going.
I kept
Not
going.
only are you a good reader, you're a writer. Uh-huh.
Yes.
Did you send her a copy? You
I
should have
did
sent
it because I'm not sure what happened. She was a little bit older when this
her.
happened. I would say probably already in her 50s or 60s, close to maybe retirement. So I am not sure what happened to her. She's
Girl,
little.
I'd have had to hunt her down and send
I
her.
get that question a lot.
I, send her a copy. But the other thing that you highlight, you talk about, was the whole epidemic, the drug epidemic
Yeah.
that happened in the 70s and 80s, and how families were torn apart. And would you say a little bit about, because you talk about
Yes.
being part of the unofficial Black foster system? I love that because
Yes.
a lot of us know what that really means, right?
We do. We do.
Uncles that became mothers, and then later on you find out, well, that's not her real mama, but that's her such and such a sister, and this one's cousin, and that, and you're like, what? You
Right.
know, Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So with the early childhood, I'm not fully sure, but my recollection was just remember having to move from my aunt to my grandma, and everybody was related to us. We never stayed with strangers. My sister Yonika, which I also talk about, we're
Mhm.
17 months apart. So it's almost like a twin
Yeah,
because I don't have a memory without her being that close in age. So one thing I can appreciate was they always kept us together.
yeah,
So but we didn't know, we thought we did something wrong was why we had to leave. So that created a deep sense of insecurity because we never was secure of like, okay, are we going to mess up and then they're going to send us away? We didn't understand. And
right.
the adults didn't sit us down to say, okay, well, you know what? Your mom is having trouble with addiction. My biological father at this time was in the military and he was deployed. And so my maternal mother, it was a lot of kids and grandkids at that time. So they had called the paternal, like, come get the girls, because
Yeah.
it's just a lot going on in Southeast DC at this time. And they lived in Maryland. So that's how it began. And then finally, I want to say when I was in third grade, my Uncle Charles was like, enough of this. The girls need stability. I'm taking the girls. And so nobody argued with him and nobody took him. And he was a bachelor, had his own house and nice job. And he was just doing
Yeah.
well for himself, never married,
Papa
no
sounds like a
children.
dream.
Yes, and then snatched up these two kind of little orphan babies, which we had a lot to work through because it took us a long time to kind of trust them. And I remember I kept asking, are you going to send us away? Like I spilled milk and we were petrified. Like, are you going to send it, because we didn't know. So he's like, no, I'm going to keep you forever. And once he said that, it just solidified something in our heart where we kind of began to trust him, and he raised us from the time, like I said, third grade on until now. He's very still active in our lives and his grandson's lives, and everyone who meets this man loves him to pieces.
Yeah.
So
Well,
he's the profound part of my story.
how wonderful a single
Yeah.
man, right? A
Yep.
single man parenting two children that aren't even his.
Yes.
I mean, it's super stereotype busting, right?
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah, isn't that is so cool.
Yeah.
And your biological dad, was there ever a reconnection or?
Yes, but it's not strong. My biological mother passed away, I want to say when I was 21. I got to see her just one time and she passed away about a few months later. My biological dad is still alive. He had 6 kids. I'm his oldest, and my youngest brothers are like 20 and 21. So we just, I'm not sure why we just don't have a strong relationship with him. The 4 daughters, but he's got a strong relationship with the 2 sons. So I don't have any bitterness or anything. Wish him well. I actually saw him, and we have Papa.
Papa.
Yeah, and then so we actually spoke to him, and it's just time has passed, and I've never had any kind of issues with him, but the relationship is just not strong.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, like you got Papa. You guys got to read the book because
Yeah.
if you want to, um, if you want to connect and engage with a positive male role model,
Oh yeah.
and a positive Black male
Yep.
role model in family,
Yeah.
then this story really will introduce you.
Oh,
And I feel like I know Papa,
oh
from
yeah.
he's like, "You gotta stop all this socializing and you gotta focus on your work." Apparently, it didn't do any good, but
Because the apple didn't fall far from the tree. He's very social, very outgoing. Like we joked, even going in Joplin, we couldn't go somewhere without someone knowing him. So my sister and I would tease him and call him the mayor because everyone knew him.
yeah,
And
like,
then the
"Here we
beautiful
go again."
thing, yeah, he taught himself how to cornrow me and my sister's hair. Like he was above and beyond. And
Wow.
that's why we love football, because when he started, he would do one head Sunday night, one head Monday night, and in front of football. So my sister and I are diehard NFL football fanatics. Love the game, calling the plays, and everyone's like, "You speak football?" Yeah, that's
That helped when you were single, right?
yeah.
To speak football. I speak. Can we change the channel?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I'm a huge fan. And then also growing up in Joplin, I was around all boy cousins. So tomboy, BMXing, playing football. It was like the small town. You could just be free and be out. Had to be in before the street lights. That's kind of a universal Black
We
home
all
thing.
heard that before.
We heard it. It
All of us
lasts
in
3
your
times.
generation and mine, we all heard that. Get in here before
Yeah.
the streetlights.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful.
Yes.
And so the inspiration for telling your story, because writing memoir, I write memoir. In fact, I've been writing memoir for the last 4 or 5 years.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I noticed about it is it's very difficult, right?
Yes.
You're going through and you're creating this tapestry of what you remember and what really happened.
Yeah.
And there are these really intense moments when you're writing memoir. How
Mhm.
how did it work out for you? Like, how were you inspired to keep going?
Yes. So I was part of a group, and the beautiful thing about the group or the challenge that I joined with USA Today bestselling author Nelena Kai was I was paired with a book coach, and I had to check in with her every day. And so I either had to tell her I'm okay, I'm on task, or I need help. And then if I needed help, she would call. We would talk, work through some things. And then the other part was they asked us to write down 20 most impactful things. And then if it hurt us, not to write at night, to try to get up early in the morning so that you have some life going through some of that. So there were some pretty traumatic stories that kind of came within the group. But for me, I think some of the racism and things that kind of maybe took me back a little bit, I did listen and I wrote in the daytime so that I had life in between. And then we had counselors, like we needed to talk to a counselor. They had it available. So I think that was what was beautiful to keep going. I didn't have to write an order. So they said, put them in segments. We'll rearrange, we'll order it, but just get it out because we can't edit what's not on the page.
Right.
And I had 30 days. Like literally we wrote it in 30 days, and that was a challenge. And like I said, we began with 18 and 4 of us went to publication. So that kind of tells the intensity, the passion, the seriousness of the project, because it was very difficult. It was not one of the easiest things. And
Yeah, you were in memoir boot camp, girl.
yeah, and I appreciate the knowledge I learned because I began in January and we published in June. So it was like hyper speed, like crash course. You just, boots to the ground. We was in it. And then the other part was my husband. There was a couple times I wanted to give up, and he said, "No, you're not going to give up. Go get in the chair. Go finish writing." He was so encouraging, and I feel that maybe some other people didn't have that, and it was easier to kind of give up. But I had a good little cheering squad that was like, "You can do this. You can do it, and you're going to do it." And I said, "Okay." And I kind of fought kicking and screaming, but I'm so happy for those pushes and that little bit of encouragement, because I would have never went to publication. I've been talking 20 years. I'm gonna write a book. And nothing. It's
Yeah,
all talk.
I mean, that's really awesome. And listen, coming from an MFA student or former
Yeah.
MFA student in creative or nonfiction, yeah, you had a boot camp, but the support that it sounds like you had was really, really important, both in your personal life and within that group. So
Yeah.
that's really awesome, because we need this work,
Yeah.
and we need these stories, right? We need to see these stories. Women of all ages, really people of all ages, need to see these stories, and we need to keep the truth alive.
Yeah.
Uh, and what I mean by keep the truth alive is like we're saying, in 1980, some lady was telling you colored people
Yep.
don't do as well.
Mhm.
And so we need to, in order to heal, you have to recognize, and you have to admit, and you have to see what's really going on, and then you can move from that to healing, but you
Yeah.
can't just sweep it under the rug.
You can't. You can't.
So yeah, so I was so grateful for reading the story and thinking, wow, and just the idea that you and your sisters, that you really made it through, and that you're thriving and doing wonderful things.
Yes. Yeah.
One of my favorite chapters was What's in a Name.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Religion is another really important topic, right? It's another important, our names,
Yes.
and can a person tell who you are by your name without seeing you?
Yep.
And then what happens with that? And tell us a little bit, how's it now? Like how is it now?
Well, my sister and I are both in our careers. So we're both high school, teachers. I teach high school. She teaches middle school. And so we had the same issues with it. Now I understand in the 70s wanting to be unique and stuff, but when you have an ethnic name like I'm Kadesha, she's Yonika. So people mispronounced it. The microaggression of, well, I'm not going to call you that. I'm going to call you Kate. Or I'm going to do this. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're going to respect me and call me my name from that. Then trying to job hunt, we went by our initials. But I remember us making a pact telling us, if we have kids, we're going to give them kind of like white names. We were like 10 and 11. We really decided then, and we did. I have one son. His name is Israel. We call him Izzy. And she has Brendan. And so the advantage was when I put my initials on, especially when I moved to the East Coast, I was getting interviews. I was getting callbacks because when they spoke to me on the phone, they didn't know. I had the surprise. Oh, when I got there, I can kind of see that look of, okay, it's a Black woman. But I had the qualifications. I had everything that they met, but HR has admitted they've looked at names and canceled people out because of that. But when I was going by KR Powell, that's when I was receiving then just Kadesha. And I had a friend tell me that from HR, put your initials on there. And I didn't even really know that was a thing, but literally changed it. 2 weeks later, I had like 4 or 5 interviews versus that last month and a half with just my full name.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's really something else.
It is. And so
think about though, what are all the, I mean, not having the freedom to name your child whatever you want to name your child. Like,
yeah, it's unfortunate.
Really feeling like in order to protect your child, you need to give them like a name that is, well, as you said, more white, or less ethnic, I guess.
Less ethnic, yes. And
so that doesn't hold them, like their name doesn't hold them back,
Right. And we've seen the boys have tons of experience and opportunities open for them without having to have any of those issues. My son graduated from college in May, and his internship and all of his jobs, he had never had any issues getting callbacks, responses, interviews, and I believe, again, the name choice was in the making.
Incredible. Absolutely. I want to have you read some for us. What did you pick out an area?
I was going to ask you, did you have a preference? Because if not, I was going to kind of start with the memory of the school where she went into that, and how I went into reading and became an avid reader from there.
Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. So this
is a bit for us.
Chapter 2, and this is chapter 2 from my book, Growing Up Joplin. Joplin is in the southwest corner of Missouri, close to where Oklahoma, Kansas, and Arkansas connect. The town has always been mostly white, with 3% Black and a tiny percent of other minority groups. We moved into a house on Windsor Street, across the street from my Aunt Edith, her husband, Big George, and they had 3 children. Delonte, the oldest, GB, who he and I are the same age, with just 2 months separating. Elizabeth is also Pooh, and she was a few years younger. I was happy to go to Rural Heights Elementary School because I'd be in the same 4th grade class as GB. As we walked to the bus stop, goofing off, sharing snacks, I didn't recall any other kids who looked like us in the 4th and 5th grades. My reading and math skills were behind because we moved around so much, and we did not attend school consistently. This caused me to be pulled out of class a few times a week for additional support. During one lesson, I shut down and no longer wanted to take part, refusing to read or even open the book. I could feel the frustration from the remedial reading teacher. Instead of being supportive and encouraging, she snatched the book from my hands and told me in front of the other students, "You're never going to be a strong reader. Colored kids don't learn like white children." Heartbroken, this was my first experience noticing the difference between myself and the white students. Glancing down at my hands, thoughts surfaced of wondering, was this true? Was I dumb? Would I ever become a strong reader? Was something wrong with my brown skin? This wound of my heart would be a pivotal moment of acute self-awareness. Deep down inside, something rebelled at the thought that I couldn't excel as well as others. I told myself, well, I was a strong reader and I could do it. After this incident, I checked out books in the library and read everything I could get my hands on. I became an avid reader and loved reading books like The Babysitter's Club, Sweet Valley Kids, and after reading The Dollhouse Murders by Betty Wren Wright, I became a fan of suspense and thrillers. Frequently, I looked for books with kids of color, kids who looked like me on the cover. Sadly, there weren't much at this time. During a few months, the book fair would come to school. Pawpaw would give us $5 for a purchase. As I perused the choices, a book with a golden brown girl on the cover drew my attention. It was Mildred D. Taylor's Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. I could not wait for school to end so I could read it. This book was beautifully written and a heartbreaking story. I cried because of the struggles the family endured. After reading it, I became interested in Black history and the experiences. They didn't teach these stories to us in school, even though it's a part of American history. All right, you want to continue, or is that a good? Or
No, that's awesome.
thank you.
When you think about the legacy of your book, what do you want it to do? Like, what do you want it to most have? What impact do you want it to most have?
Well, number one, I would like it to be an impact of even though people have different struggles, they're still valid. And I think that there's a narrative of kind of the Black struggle that there's not another type of struggle that's out there, and there are people that had rough circumstances, but there are people that didn't have rough circumstances that they didn't. I never grew up in the hood. We were never on assistance. I've never had government cheat and all these other stories that hard for me to relate to when I hear people talking about it. But then the other side of that too is some of the, I guess, microaggressions that maybe also come from Black folks. Like, why do you sound white? You're a Black white girl and all these other things. So it's kind of like you can't win for losing a little when you are in an environment where I'm just like, I grew up in Joplin, Missouri. We all sound the same if you go there. So I just want people to be inspired to say, we all go through hard stuff, and your struggle, don't compare the struggles. It's not a competition. It's not a race. And it's a voice that I don't think we see it. We don't see it on the news or the media as much as we see some other struggles that are highlighted and consistent. And I think we're 13% of the population, but we're not a monolith, and we all have different experiences and we all have different trials. And so it's a matter of how do we overcome those trials? And first we have to admit, and then we have to dig down in ourselves and say, okay, I want better for myself, and how can I educate other people?
Yeah. And that's such a great idea and vision, right? Is for people to not compare struggles and to just be unafraid to be themselves, just be yourself and who you are, and own your experience, and
Yeah.
then allow others to own theirs, right? You can't I think that's really a great point, and so much that we need
Yeah.
as we move forward in growing as a people.
Yes.
You talk a lot about sort of being the only one, and having to explain why Black people do this and Black people. I mean, we've heard this so many times, and it's just like,
Yep.
when is it going to stop? Like,
Yeah.
it's like really crazy.
It,
But
it,
excuse me, at the same time, I think it's comforting for those of us who recognize those moments to see them, and
yes.
see that we're not the only ones, and that someone managed to push through that rubbish
Mhm.
and really build a life.
Yes.
What was your college experience like once? And you said,
Yeah.
well, one thing at a time. I'll let you talk about that after
Yeah.
you.
Okay, so college experience, I didn't want to go. I didn't. I was over school, all the stuff that I went through. I was like, if college is like high school, I don't want it. I was like, I want to work at and get my own apartment. I was trying to be Miss Independent at that time, but my dad's like, no, you're gonna go to school. So I told him, okay, I'm applied to this one college. If I don't get in, I'm gonna work to do my plan. So I applied to one college, which was University of Central Missouri, because one of the things with grades, he never fussed with us about grades. He just said, don't bring home any D's, F's, or babies. And so I was like, yo level, I was a straight C student. Although I knew I could do better, I was okay with just doing a bare minimum. And so I knew my grades weren't that great. So we all were surprised when I did get accepted into the University of Central Missouri, which was about 3 hours from home and about 50 miles east of Kansas City. So being a freshman and being an extrovert, I had no issues talking to people. And then, of course, their issues like, where did you grow up from? Because Kansas City has a little dialect. St. Louis has a little dialect. You get to kind of know where people are from. And I'd be like, Joplin. And they're like, where is that? Are you the only Black people down there? And so then having all Black friends and being kind of in a small environment of all Black people,
Yeah.
It's kind of refreshing. But then again, on that flip side, still being teased about speech and mannerisms, and like being called black white girl is like the nickname, and other things like that that could also be just as hurtful as being in the, and only. It's still kind of like, well, what's wrong with me? And nothing to do to change it, because I can't really change my speech or how I sound. If I tried, it would totally sound fake. And so I just said, well, if people are going to accept me for me, they will. If not, okay, oh well. And I kind of kept it moving. But the beautiful thing is, I'm, made friends with about 5 women, and we're still very good friends to this day. We travel together. We talk pretty often, very active on social media. So my core friend group was always amazing, always awesome.
That is so awesome. That that's where we make those, make those relationships in college a lot.
Oh, yeah.
That's a really good thing. You built your posse,
Yeah.
and you kind of went from one extreme to the other.
Did.
So highlighting some of that stuff, not being black enough, and not sounding black. And what in the world is that? What
Right.
is sounding black exactly?
Yeah.
Because you have a command of standard English
Yeah.
doesn't make you any less black.
Exactly.
Or if you don't have a command of standard English, I mean, it's just like we have to start to look at who we are.
Yes.
And to validate who we are,
Mm-hmm.
where we're standing, right? Where we meet each other. Just be who we are, where we are.
Very
And
true. Very true.
yeah, I the messages in your book, I just think they're very timely.
Yes. Thank you.
And so glad that it's out there. What are your plans for writing more? I know you're doing something. You do film, right? Or
Yeah. So I teach high school students. I teach them how to tell digital stories. So I teach them how to shoot and edit video. And I've been doing that for 10 years. And one thing I'm hyper aware about my class is to make sure I respect every student and make sure I get to know them for who they are. And so I told my students, I want them to tell their own stories, because now with YouTube and so many options that are out there, they can make short films and get them out. One of my favorite moments was in 2014. 2 of my students took us to meet President Barack Obama with our films. And so, of course, math and science and the cores, they're important, but CTE and career tech ed classes are just as important, because I kind of tease the math people, like, did math take y'all to meet Barack Obama? We met Barack Obama with our film. So they couldn't tell me nothing, like, at all. So I love that, because I still get to be creative, and then I get to teach the next generation to be creative, to own their voices. I share a lot of my kind of testimony with my kids to let them know some of the struggles I have, because they're really shocked when they find out that, they'll be like, well, my dad's not in my life. And I'm like, well, neither biological parent raised me. And look at what happened. They're shocked. They're really shocked about that when I just keep it real with them. And so that's how the video film and the creativeness comes out. But then with the writing and being part of Nalena Kai's tribe, I was offered several opportunities to continue writing. So one is with a series that they're working on, and I'm co-authoring with another lady in my cohort, Miss Erica B. Davis. And then I'm working on an inspirational series that will come out right before Easter. And so we just released Merry Hearts, and then we'll do Grateful Hearts. And then I think I'm working on Joyful Hearts. So I've had opportunities, because I've proven that I can write, I can push through, I can meet deadlines. And it's just a passion that that I have the stories bubbling in, because I could talk the stories all day, but, getting them on paper. And it's been beautiful that people still read. Because in the day and age with TV and phones and everything, I sold more of the physical copy of the book than I did the ebooks, because people want it in their hands, or at least my Gen Xers, we still kind of want it in our hands. And I'm very much like that too. I'll read it on Kindle, but if I can get a physical copy, it's just something about the physical copy in my hand that just brings joy, to my heart when I'm just reading. And I'm done it, a 500-page book, I'm done in about maybe 2.5 hours. That's how avid book. And I can tell everything that's happened for it. So I just love the whole creative field, love telling stories, love making people happy. Did a little bit of stand-up comedy and stuff. So being on and, it's natural. So when people are like, you're a little dramatic, I'm like, I And I embrace it. I own it, but the energy works for me in the class because the kids, are like, what is happening? But they get used to it. And I end up being one of their favorite teachers. So that's been just like such a heart touching part that I am impacting that next generation of young people.
Oh, that's awesome. Because then we're going to have you on the show regularly because
Oh,
you're
yes.
writing and writing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is what Power Books is all about. And
Yes.
I want to remind our listeners and our audience right now that they can go to powerbooks.com and they can buy Growing Up Joplin. They can get their physical copy in their hands pretty quickly. And we're excited about that. We're excited about, let us know your other titles and
Okay.
so that we can get those stocked as well. We're always adding to our inventory. And so that's going to be really, really exciting. So I usually like to ask a few fun questions.
Yes. Okay.
In my classroom, I always want to know from my undergrad students, like, what's your favorite book? And I think you might have already told us, but what's your favorite book and why?
Now I really like the Bible. And the reason why, because one time I remember a guy in a Bible study that said people act like they just open it and get a chapter and then they know what's going on. They're like, you would never go to the movies 10 minutes at the end, expect to know. So he challenged the small group to read it cover to cover. So when I read it cover to cover, I was like blown away of like the depth, the stories. And it kind of just came alive because I kind of visually saw like the war and the challenges and I'm just a huge fan. So I try to do it like once a year, kind of sit down, read it cover to cover, Genesis through Revelation. Now, kind of Deuteronomy and some of those early ones, a little bit struggle. But once we get past some of the other ones, past the law, huge fan.
Any favorite women's stories in the Bible that you because I don't think there are any books of the Bible that were written by women.
Well, I know that Ruth is definitely, she gets a chapter and, yeah. From there, and a lot of people do connect with Ruth in the story. But I tell people the Bible character I connect with most is probably a Peter, because he was passionate, he was a little hothead, he was cutting off ears, and I feel that that's kind of me. I could be super spontaneous and then be like, and a little reckless and be like, oh wow, okay, whoa. Did I just cut off ear? So I feel like I relate to him the most. Now, what's funny with my husband, we're almost polar opposites. I kind of have a gentle giant, he's very calm. He's very relaxing. He's very like peaceful. And so he just looks at me sometimes like, okay, you doing too much right now. You're doing too much. And I'm like, I know I am, but it's got some just great meat in there that cover to cover, it brings it alive than just maybe a chapter or a snippet or maybe that one Bible verse. It just makes it's just one of my favorite books, hands down.
It certainly is an interesting book for sure.
Yeah.
What is your favorite type of music or band?
Okay, so I love me some 90s R&B and rap music because I was in high school when Snoop and everybody came out. As you saw it, well, in the book, I got in trouble for leaving the NWA cassette tape in the car when we stole the car. So I got in trouble for that again. My dad was like, what is this? And so love me some gangster rap. But you know what? On the flip side, I also love alternative and a little heavy metal. Metallica, a lot of those grunge bands that came out at the same time, because in Joplin, there was no hip hop station. So the radio was all kind of what was current hits but I've always had a love for music. I also worked at a public radio station where it was classical music the whole time. So it took a little bit used to, because it was wanting to put me to sleep, but having appreciation for the composure, some of the history and some of the beautiful pieces. I love all kinds. I really do. And I'm a huge fan of musicals. Like if I want a happy place, I'll put on Hamilton and I'll have the captions on and I'll be singing and rapping, the musical. Yeah, but it's so eclectic. It's random. People will get in the car and be like, what are you doing? I'm like, that's just how I'm vibing right now.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. And let's see, what else? Foods.
Okay, yes. absolute favorite food. Love some chicken with some hot sauce on it. Some fried chicken
That's
wings.
what I'm thinking about. My God, I've been obsessing about fried chicken for 2 days.
Yes, with some ranch dressing. And my husband is Nigerian, so I've had appreciation for some of their foods when it's not too hot. So he makes a goosey and some of the other soups that are traditional from Nigeria. So I expanded my palate there. And I've always been bold to be like, oh, I want to try this. Oh, this is alligator. Oh, let me take a bite. Or ostrich.
Oh,
Or it's been random that I
good.
will try. Yeah, I had haggis when I was in Scotland. Now I don't know if I would have that again, but I haven't. I will try it. I'll try it. And so, but yeah, fried chicken with some hot sauce and some ranch, and I'm good to go. And probably one of my favorite things to eat. It's like a little snack.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. It's so funny that you said that because I swear I was like, what am I having for dinner? Like I have leftover pizza, but I really want chicken. But anyway.
Get some chicken. You can never go wrong with some chicken wings. And I like the drums over the flats.
You like the drums over the flats?
Yeah, because my restaurant, they'll give you
I'll eat
more. Yeah, they will give you all of either or for $1 more on the order. So I'm all drums.
You're good.
At all.
You're good. That is so interesting. What else do you want our listeners and the readers to know about you, the author? What else do you want them to know?
Yeah, I would just say not to let anyone kind of steal your joy. And the thing about joy is it's a choice. It's a choice. Just like kind of happiness, you can wake up each day and choose, okay, am I going to let the weight of the world, bog me down? Is it going to affect? And I would also tell people, like, it's okay to get help. It's okay to talk to people. I know that sometimes as Black women, we have the weight of everything on our shoulders that we neglect ourselves. But we can't give from an empty tank. So if we don't take time to take care of ourselves, we can't take care of other people when they really need us. So one of the biggest things for me, really being comfortable telling people no. And I tell my high school students, no is a complete sentence. You don't owe anybody any explanation for why you choose to do what you choose to do. And when you say no, when you back out of projects, you back out of things, when you find peace, it's so beautiful that you do want to protect it. And so I think getting to the place of just busy to be busy. And I would say in my 40s, I'll be 46 in December, but starting in the 40s, I started just being like, okay, I'm tired. I'm exhausted emotionally, mentally, physically. I need to take care of me, and taking care of me was traveling. I love to travel. I've been to about maybe 15 countries, still hopefully travel after everything's happened. Love manicures, pedicures, get my hair done. I love things for me. And then sometimes I just turn everything off and just get in the bed with a good book. So that's how I recharge. That's some me time. And I think that's important for all of us to do that. Even if we have families and careers and we have all these things and titles, you have to take time for you. You got to take time for you.
Yeah, that's really key. And as you said, for women of color,
yes,
it's always hard. Like you have to put yourself on your schedule.
You do.
And then you have to decide where on your schedule. Like
you
have to decide how important you are in relation to all the other things that you want to do or need to do or think you have to do. These things. So that's a really great lesson. Maybe you're gonna write a book on self-care.
Yeah, because that's also a journey, because people don't know what that is and what it looks like. Because if you're like, okay, take a day for you. And I tell people who are single, date yourself, because you can't expect someone to know what you like if you don't know what you like. And when I met my husband, like I said, like I wrote in the book, it was crazy. We met and then I left. School ended, which is crazy. If you're a teacher, the end of the semester is crazy. We took my grandma on a cruise. I spent 3 weeks in Guatemala, came home, school started. I went to Dubai. I went to Denmark and had surgery. And he was there like through all of that, which I'm like, okay, you are a rarity, like this type of love and caring, I've never seen or experienced before. So he definitely was a keeper, in that sense. But Yeah. And so once I was like, okay, I love to travel. I want to go as many places as I can because people tease me all the time. Okay, you always going somewhere. I'm like, yeah. At that time, I was empty nester. My only child was in school, in college, and he was out there. And I was like 40. So I was like, yes, the advantages of having a kid when I was young. Well, when I was 21,
I
I'm not
think
super
so.
old that I can't enjoy the travels, and I will go by myself with people without, I have no issues and I have no problem being alone because I tell people I love myself. Me and self know what we want.
Yeah. No, that's such an important point. And I've worked with women as a coach in the past, and that's
Mm,
something that I always like to emphasize is that
yeah.
if you don't know, just what you said, if you don't know what you want, how is anybody else going to know?
Yes.
How are they going to know how to quote unquote please you if
Yeah.
you don't know how to please you? You don't know, the things that make you happy or give you joy. Then
Yes.
the other person is not supposed to be some sort of um
Mind reader.
right,
Yeah.
mind reader, and know, oh, this is gonna make her happy. That's
Yeah.
like really crazy.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's also a very important lesson that comes through in your writing
Yes.
is this delving into self and getting to know self and
Yeah.
creating a relationship with self. I've always thought that that is the most important relationship, that the
Yes.
relationship with self and with spirit, what I call spirit,
Yes. Yes.
God, whatever name you call that power by. Those I think are key because then that helps you as you move out into all the other areas of
Mhm.
your life. So we're so excited about growing up Joplin and
Thank
so
you.
so excited that you leaned into the positive and that you didn't allow experiences to weigh you down
Yeah.
and to victimize you.
Yeah.
So I'm so proud of that and so excited for everyone out there to read the book and to it's really a cool read. And I almost want to say I finished it in one sitting.
Yeah,
Um,
most
but
people did. It's a
yeah,
maybe hour and a half. It's a quick kind of little snippet highlights because
yeah,
when people think memoirs, they're like, oh my gosh, they're so, but we were like, hey, these are impactful, bam, 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 bam. And so doing it that way, then the traditional in first grade, second grade, we gonna just start out the gate, with it to
wow.
hook. But
And that's the difference between autobiography and memoir.
yes,
Um,
yes,
you know, which
yes.
is something else that I teach. But it's so interesting because now the way that you've done it, you can always go back and you can always do another memoir on
Yes,
other parts of your life or other interesting pieces that you want to share or that you want to teach from in life. And
yeah,
so that would be very interesting. What I think would be really cool, listening to you talk about the videos, is to do a multimedia story. And
yeah,
I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I saw something once where somebody had a book, like it was on a website, and then you like interacted with the story
okay.
and went through that. I just think that's so. I'm not sure the workings of it, but that would be so
Right.
interesting. So, do
Yeah.
tell if you decide to do something like that.
I will because I'm thinking about making it into an audiobook. So my next set to read my story because I do have the tools to edit and put it together. And so I said
And
that's
you
coming
read
up.
really well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I'll have the dramatics and the flair, and it's my voice, for that. So I do have that. And then I've had other teachers reach out and said that they would love to put it in their class. So I might write like a curriculum companion to, okay, this is how you would use this book if you were going to use it in class. It's a quick read. The most of the parts of language is pretty good, but I kept it real. And I feel that it could be utilized for the young people because right now they're searching and
Yeah.
they're hurting, they're hurting, they're angry, they're frustrated, they're not sure why. And they just need that positive, like,
Yeah.
hey, this is
You
a real
know,
life
you
person.
know there's some young woman in some class somewhere that's still being teased about
Yep.
her name or
Yep.
still being teased about her hair or still being teased about her family or still being teased about any number of crazy things. And
Yes.
for her to have your book would just be fantastic
Yeah.
because and thinking about when you were looking to
Yeah.
read books where there were characters like you, there were people, so oh my goodness, I could just
Yeah.
totally see that, and you being an educator is awesome.
Yeah.
Right, you know exactly how to help others, you know, present that material and use it as a teaching tool. So that's
Yeah.
absolutely exciting. Uh,
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, so I'm excited again
Thank
that you came to join us, and I'm looking forward to having you join us again and talk about new projects.
Okay, yes.
Maybe talk to more of the women in your cohort, and you
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
maybe we'll just have a giant live stream. You know,
Right, right. Yeah, I think that they would be open. We've done that on Clubhouse and other outlets that the four of us came together. Nelena Kai came into because kind of her vision of seeing
yeah,
writers come together and how she began. Because even the first night that I went on Clubhouse, it was the first thing that I saw. Oh, you want to write a book? So I popped in the room, and it was her room, and we went to the Zoom right after that, and that's how it began.
yeah,
I was is like, okay, wow. But I had been praying, like, Lord, you know me. I need accountability in my life, and I'm all over the place. And that was my prayer, kind of beginning November. And I really feel in my heart and spirit that they were an answer to prayer. You
yeah.
know, because I had trouble getting an invitation to the platform. Finally, get in the first room I'm in is so you want to write your book, and from there, I've been with them ever since.
Fantastic,
Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah, so we definitely have to do it because,
yeah,
again, Power Books is all about elevating women writers and their work,
yeah.
and the readers, you know, who read the work. So
Yes.
thank you again,
Thank
and we
you
will, you
so
know, do this
much.
again. We'll have more conversation,
Okay.
and you know, it was just great. It was really cool. Everybody, uh, read and buy and read "Growing Up Joplin" by Kadesha Powell. It is fantastic. Thank you again.
Thank you
Enjoy
so
the rest of your
much.
evening, and
Okay.
we'll see you again soon.
Yes. All right. Take care. Appreciate it.
Bye bye.
All right.